Matt?
Pretty good, sir. Yourself?
I am doing well. And I'm looking forward to talking about Zardoz. Because obviously we had the untimely passing of Sean Connery this month.
We did.
And so we were thinking of films to do, weren't we? And we were.
Yeah.
There were a few candidates. From Russia with Love was one of them. But Zardoz is a film that generally just gets shit on.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
And I'm almost wondering whether people listening are going to be expecting us to do the same. But that's not really going to happen here. Because
No.
I think we both share the same opinion. That whilst flawed,
Yeah,
very
definitely.
flawed,
Yeah.
Zardoz has some very interesting ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I think obviously John Boorman went from Deliverance to
Yep.
Zardoz, or maybe there was a film or two in between, but effectively
Yeah, I think pretty much.
I think it was pretty much Deliverance. Point Blank, Hell in the Pacific, Deliverance, Zardoz.
Yeah. Zardoz Deliverance was just before this.
Yeah, and then Zardoz comes almost out of left field, very odd, and then of course he followed this up with The Exorcist 2.
Yeah, which is like one of the most reviled movies of all time.
And I mean that movie is mostly dog shit, but it
Garbage.
does have some interesting visuals, given that, and then of course Excalibur. All is forgiven for Excalibur.
See, weirdly, when people are talking about Zardoz, they bring up Excalibur like almost in the same breath.
Oh, hell no.
And I didn't realise so many people dislike Excalibur.
Excalibur is a masterpiece, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I adore it. The only problem with Excalibur is that it should have been like an hour longer. That's the only thing, in my opinion. Like they cram so much story into one movie. It just doesn't feel long enough. Nothing breathes long enough. The pace is too fast. But God, I love Excalibur. We should cover Excalibur one day.
Definitely.
Because I've got nothing but praise for that movie. I love Excalibur. But Zardoz is a really interesting film, and I think it'll make for an interesting chat as we go through. I've rewatched it this week. I assume you rewatched it this week as well.
I have indeed.
Should we just go through the plot?
Yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
It's obviously directed by John Boorman, and 1974 release.
Indeed.
So
year before I was born, so it's a year older than I am.
It's a year older than you. Yeah, there you go. Well, before we get into the plot, I guess we need to start with what I would consider, despite my defending of this film, one of the worst openings to any film I've ever fucking seen.
Really, I love the opening.
The floating head, not the Zardoz head.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's another one of those fucking things where the
awful
studio
poetry and like person's head floating around. He's got like a towel on his head and like Sharpie mustache and beard, and it's
Frayne, isn't it? So you've got Arthur Frayne's head, who basically explains the plot.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those times where the fucking studio says
you need to explain
no one understands the movie. You need to put in a thing at the beginning so that people will understand it.
And by the way, you've got no budget to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So but it's just like his head floating around saying awful poetry.
As a 90s screensaver, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah, it kind of is. Or like when you the old DVDs as well, when the DVD logo just floats around.
Yeah,
it's basically that, and he's just using like awful, almost like awful like school level poetry, just terrible. So that's awful, and I can see why. You can kind of see why this film gets the reputation it gets. They see Sean Connery in the outfit, which we'll get to, and then you're accosted by this fucking head. But then we get to the actual opening of the movie, which I think is tremendous. You get the other floating head, which is the stone head of Zardoz, which I think is a wonderful visual. I think
awesome. It's one of my favourite visuals from when I was watching it from a kid sort of thing. It's great. That whole idea of this massive giant floating head is fantastic.
It's a terrifying concept, and it may not have aged particularly well. I still think it looks pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah.
This big paper mache head. I think it looks awesome. But it works. I think it works in concept.
Yeah, it does.
So the idea is that it's the post-apocalyptic future of Earth. I think it's 2293.
Yep.
Thanks, Wikipedia. And the human population is divided into two separate groups.
There's more than that, but initially,
three,
I think, isn't it? It's three.
Yes.
So you've got the. Well, I guess.
You've got the Eternals and the Brutals, effectively.
Yes.
But then within that, you have
the Exterminators are a subgroup of Brutals, aren't they?
Yes. So
later you get introduced to the others.
Yeah. So the Immortals live in a. They keep mentioning vortexes.
They're vortexes, yeah.
Yeah. So they live in Ireland.
It's basically shielded communities.
Yeah, it's a shielded community, and they're called immortal because whenever they die, they basically regrow. They're kind of reborn.
And they only die from accidents or...
Yeah.
They're basically, completely immortal.
They're immortal aside from, if you, stabbed them or cut their head off or threw them out of a giant floating head, for example. Those are ways that they would die, but then they're brought back to life in these shrink-wrapped, rebirthed bodies. Pods, yeah. So yes, it's 2293, and we've got the Immortal Eternals, and then we've got the Brutals. So the Brutals are basically just the rest of the population of Earth, and they're split into two, like you said.
Complete sort of wandering sort of dumb drudgery sort of stuff that wandering around the outside world, starving and huddled, as it were.
Yes. Starving in the ruins of Earth, and just surviving in this post-apocalypse. But as you rightly said, there are two factions of Brutals. So you've got the normal Brutals who are just trying to live their life and survive in this horrendous post-apocalypse that they find themselves in, and you've got the Exterminators, and the Exterminators are told by Zardoz, which to them is a giant floating head. Stone head, which looks imposing and terrifying, and you'd think to if you are a caveman or of limited, knowledge, savage as they're trying to make out here, you would think it could be a god. It's just a giant floating head.
They're pretty much kept dumb, aren't they?
Yes.
No one knows how to read or anything, or no one's educated.
So
they're all
So Zardoz, or the Stonehead, appears occasionally and tells the Exterminators that reproduction is bad. That you need to stop the other Brutals from reproducing.
Basically, the Exterminators are population control.
They're population control. Yeah, they are literally told, go out and murder the other Brutals that you see. So the Exterminators wear these ludicrous red outfits, and the stone heads. I still think the masks look really cool.
The masks are awesome.
I'd love one of those masks. I'd love a Zardoz mask.
It's John Borman's head, apparently.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
that's cool.
Because I think they got into trouble from the communist countries because they were all saying that it was what's his name, the founder of communism, Marx.
Oh, okay.
They all thought it was it was based on Marx. It was no, it's not. It's my own head.
It was it was based on Marx, but I used my own head, so it doesn't
kind of look like Marx, but it's my own head. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fair enough. So the stone head of Zardoz will appear occasionally, and spout its rhetoric to the Exterminators, and it will say, the penis is bad, the penis shoots the seed, and must be stopped, but guns are good, and it will So, by the way, post-apocalypse, I don't know if my microphone's picking up. It's just constant noise out there. I can
hear
there's like sirens going on. There's all sorts going on out there right now. I don't know. But in any case, so it will then dispense guns and weapons to the exterminators. Yeah, so they're given...
And that's a big pile of guns as well.
It's a mountain of guns. It just come pouring out of the mouth of Zardoz, as it's called. And then the exterminators will go out and brutalize, kill, and just, yeah, like you said, keep the population low, and keep them in check. You are kind of given the slight impression that the exterminators are given a little. They have a little more intelligence, or at least they're given more knowledge. A little knowledge is dangerous, I guess, and that's what they have. They have a little knowledge. But one day, Zed, played by Sean Connery, decides that he's going to get inside of the stone head. So he hides inside of the stone head during one of the trips. And is confronted or found by one of the Eternals.
Well, he's looking out of the mouth, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
When he turns around and he jumps down.
Startles him, doesn't he?
And he shoots him in the arm.
Yeah, he shoots him in the arm, and then he falls out of the head and is temporarily killed.
Yeah.
So the head then continues on. And arrives in the vortex. So there are vortexes.
Also, we should say that the interior of the head
is just full of vacuum-packed
people. Yeah.
Yes.
Which, when I was a kid, I thought, is that how the ship is powered?
I think it's just spare bodies, but maybe it is powered.
I think it's what I think now is that it's to do with the later plot. So I won't say anything now.
Yeah.
I won't say anything now, but yeah.
I think you might be right.
It's very odd, and sort of like they're poking at them and stuff.
Yeah. The head finally arrives at the vortex that we're going to, because they kind of make out there's a number of vortexes. This is one of them. It looks like Ireland, and they basically arrive because it is. Yes, because it is Ireland. It's Ireland, but with strange bubbles around some buildings, and that's about it. So.
And I love the way it just sort of like parks in the back of the house, like
just casual, just
casually parks there.
Casually
no one
chills
pays any
there.
attention to it.
No. So Zed arrives via the head into the vortex, and he's met by Consuela and May.
Yeah.
And they immediately overpower him with their psychic abilities. So the Eternals have psychic power.
He does a bit of wandering around first, doesn't he?
Sorry, he kind of wanders aimlessly for a little while. He
sort of wanders into sort of some of the gardens and things.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a beautiful location, a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's basically it was his own home. So.
Oh, was it? Is it Borman's home?
I think one of the houses in it is one of Borman's home, because apparently. Sean Connery lived with the family while he was there, and he paid them rent and everything.
That's amazing. I mean, that I would say is one of the problems with this movie, is that it was like $1.5 million budget, and I think if it had 10 million, we'd be seeing a very different film. Which I guess could be said for a lot of films, but in this case, you can clearly see where more budget would have definitely helped. Helped kind of sell this idea. But yes, you're right. He does wander around in the gardens for a bit, and he's kind of taking it all in, and then he's overpowered by Consuela and May with their psychic powers, and they then make him a prisoner, and he basically becomes like slave labor, I guess. He just works their community then.
So basically established that no brutal has ever,
he's the first,
as their words are, penetrated the vortex.
Well, yes, there is a lot of sexual.
There is a huge amount of sexual.
It's just a very, which makes me wonder whether that's why Sean Connery basically signed up to this.
I think
he was sold. I think like Borman basically said to him, "Look, you're going to be like the perfect man."
Yeah.
And you're going to go to these people and
lots of naked ladies in it.
Basically, everyone fancies you, and then you have sex with everyone, and that's what you're there for. You're there to teach them the men how to be a man, and women how to be a woman, and how to, And I think he was kind of, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like he was sold by that.
He wanted to step away from Bond. He wanted to do something that was completely different.
He succeeded.
Also, no one was hiring him after Bond.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it?
Get work.
Yeah.
So I think it's the main reason why he took this job is because, one, he couldn't get work yet, and two, it was so different from Bond. He was intrigued,
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't understand a bloody word of it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because famously, Sean Connery, of course, turned down the role of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings because he didn't understand it. And I do wonder whether League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and maybe Zardoz are reasons why he was like, if I don't understand the script, I'm not goddamn doing it. Like, forget it.
I mean, Lee completely killed him, didn't it? It was like, that's it, I'm not doing any more. Fuck it.
I think he was near retirement at that point, and he kind of wanted out anyway. And then I think if that had been a successful film, he would have probably gone on for a few more years. But that effectively done it for him. He was done after that.
He was done. That was it. He wasn't gonna. Although he's done a few voiceovers every now and again, that was it for him. I think.
Yeah. Which is fair enough. He had a hell of a career anyway, so why not? So effectively, he becomes a menial worker for their community.
We get so May, who is she's kind of like the chief scientist, isn't she, May? And she
she wants him to study.
Yeah, she wants to study him, and she wants to know how he ticks, and she wants to see if they've evolved out there in the sort of wilderness. And Consuela just wants him destroyed.
Just kill him. Yeah.
She thinks he will pollute their way of life.
And she is right.
And she's completely right. Yeah, she's completely and utterly right. Because even just him being there, all of the women immediately are like, "Ooh, what's this?"
That's Sean Connery. Yeah.
And they sort of see they basically project his thoughts sort of on the screen to see what he does and stuff, and they're all completely like, oh, look at that, well, that's real entertainment as he's seeing him riding along gunning down these poor brutals and raping them and stuff.
I feel like this might be a good point to talk about the outfit, because we have to talk about the outfit. Everyone knows. I think 90% of the people that say Zardoz is a crap film have never watched it, and they've only seen that image, the one that you immediately think of when you say Zardoz. Now, I had a weird thing watching this movie, and I don't know. I'm curious if you will agree. The opening of the movie. When he's all crusty, because it's weird, he's kind of crusty when he's on the ground, and then he gets in the head and he's not crusty anymore. But when he's all crusty on the ground and he's wearing the mask and all that stuff, they got all that. The outfit is the gun belts, the pants or the nappy, and the thigh-high boots. That's what he wears.
Yeah, the cavalry boots,
Now, I could be...
And lots of mud.
And lots of mud. Now,
and the masks as well.
And the masks, I could be completely alone in thinking this, but weirdly, I find it's much easier to watch Sean Connery in this movie when he's wearing less than when he's wearing more. Because when he gets captured, they get rid of the thigh-high boots and the gun belts, and he's just in his pants. And at that point... It's it's kind of like watching Bond now. Bond was in his pants loads and fine. you just kind of get on with it, right? It's the thigh-high boots. That's what really tips it over the edge, I think, is the fucking cavalry boots.
And I think it's also that the bandoliers are sort of really weird because they kind of yank the pants up.
Yeah, they do. They kind of turn it into almost a thong kind of thing going on for no reason.
It's some sort of weird mankini sort of thing.
Well, it's like they decided to add the gun belts at the end of near the end, near shooting, and they hadn't really thought about it, and then well, we can't actually attach these to anything. How are we going to make that work?
Yeah. And there also things well, they need to be carrying ammunition. Don't they? I mean...
Yeah. I think it would have been so much. I think it would have just worked so much better if they were just dressed like cavemen and just given guns, and like ammo belts. So
it's also the weird combination of the ponytail and tash as well. I think.
Yes. Now Connery can pull off a mustache.
Oh,
very
yeah,
well.
Absolutely. But I think there's. The problem is that the actual outfit fits in with the rest of the movie. So. And most of the time, it's like when you initially see it, your brain goes, "Oh my god!" But then my brain just kind of...
You get used to it. You get used to it after after the initial...
Really think about it.
No, after the initial shock, you get over it. And certainly rewatching it didn't even come cross my mind, really. It was it's just that is this movie. But an interesting choice, and I think it certainly went towards people's loathing of this film, or taking it humorously or making fun of it. I think it all kind of derives from that. So in any case, so he's now doing menial tasks for the community of Eternals.
We're sort of introduced to the other one, which is his friend, played by John Alderton, who is he's an interesting one because unlike the other sort of Eternals, he seems to have more of a sense of humor. And he doesn't seem to be quite in step with the others.
You can see in several scenes. I think a lot of the other Eternals really don't like him.
Yeah,
you get the impression he's just very irritating to them. He is.
I think there's actually it's the intellectual ones find him irritating, but I think the others, because there's a bit where he seems to be telling a joke backwards.
Yes, yeah.
And they're all enamored and they're all listening and they all laugh. So it's not that he's disliked or anything. I think it's just that he's not quite on board with the rest of them. It would seem.
Yes, yeah.
And this is where you find that while he's doing the menial tasks and he's pulling the rickshaw and stuff, you find that they make their own bread, and what they've changed what the exterminator that they're using the exterminators for. At some point recently, the exterminators were challenged with not just killing the brutals. They're now charged with rounding them up and making them farm wheat.
Yes.
For the Eternals.
Yes.
And the Eternals are baking the bread, and you see them, and then you get Zed is dragging this cart with Friend in it, and he goes to distribute the bread between the other two sort of factions that we get introduced to, which are the Apathetics.
Yes.
Who are these people that are literally just stood there doing nothing.
They're in like a catatonic state, aren't they? Effectively,
yeah. They've got their own little sort of
like living statues.
Yeah, they basically interact with nobody, and you can move them, and they don't sort of bat an eyelid or anything. And you find that the reason they started changing what the brutals do is because they could no longer completely feed themselves with the amount of apathetics that are sort of turning up there. More and more people are basically the Eternals have just got to the point where they've got nothing to do, they don't really care about anything, and they've just completely succumbed to ennui.
Yes.
And then once you introduce to those,
so they do say, I should say, they at least hint or insinuate that the apathetics is kind of it's almost a plague on the Eternals, and
yes.
it's insinuated that the reason for this plague is because there's no need for them to procreate anymore. There's just no need. So men are the eternal men are impotent, and basically they meditate instead of sleeping, but then a lot of them have started falling into this apathetic bracket and becoming catatonic.
Yeah, and you get another sort of very rapey.
You would not get that made today. That scene would not go down today at all.
He gets frustrated because she doesn't move or scream like he's used to, I guess.
Yeah.
So he picks her up and throws her on the head.
I must admit, I did laugh at that scene because it was so ridiculous. But yes, the intent of that scene is horrendous. But
yeah, he basically has a hissy fit and chucks some girls around and kicks the cart over.
Yes, although he brings her out of her apathy, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then I think she's sort of they begin to respond to him, his rage.
Yes. Yeah.
And then is it you're introduced to the renegades, or is it before them? I can't remember which order it goes in.
I'm not entirely sure. But we can go with that. So,
either way, right? You then get introduced to.
Oh no, actually, aren't we introduced to the renegades after Friend gets done?
No, he takes them through with the cart.
Oh, he does. You're right. I think he sees the renegades after the apathetic.
I think so. They takes them to this this big sort of mansion.
Yeah.
And there are these very old people, who are all there, and they're sort of in very dirty, stained tuxedos and ballroom dresses and things.
Yeah.
And you're basically told that these are the renegades. They're the old people, and what it is that some of them are the original people that founded the civilization, and others are there as become punishment. So basically, any transgression by
social deviants,
any transgression is basically punished with years added on to you.
Yes, so they end up very old and frail. Yeah,
but still alive. Not that, you can't.
They're
die.
Immortal.
Exactly. So
but they're then trapped in frail old bodies.
Decaying bodies.
Yeah.
And you also get that's when you get the trial of this other guy. I can't remember what is it George Seddon, who is he's had bad thoughts, and I think he tried to kill himself.
Yes.
And there's a trial on whether he should be punished or whether he should be, because and that's when you see that Friend is definitely not with the others.
No.
He says complete acquittal. He thinks it's funny that he's sort of having these thoughts and he's trying to kill himself. So he says complete acquittal, but I think the others, he's then you find out he is punished with, I can't remember how many years they add to his.
I can't remember, but
5 years or something.
He's given extra years, and you're right. You get the distinct impression that Friend is just. I think Friend is just bored of life being an eternal, really.
Yeah.
And you're right. He just likes to do things that amuse him, and in this kind of society where there is no need for sex, no need for anything, no wanting for anything really. He's just bored and looking for a way to entertain himself, and that usually means pretty horrendous things, as a general rule. But, so we're also told that the Eternals are overseen by the Tabernacle, which is an artificial intelligence which saves them from death and keeps them going.
It's interesting. It's like the internet, isn't it? It's because they ask it questions. It knows everything. They ask it questions, and because they've got these rings, and that's it. When Zed first gets there, he finds it's Arthur's ring, isn't it? And he starts asking it questions, and
that's right. Yeah,
he's using it sort of to find out what things are and what's the point of plants and
I love the scene when he's trying to get rid of the hologram off of his hand, and it keeps appearing on him and talking. Yeah, he tries catching it, doesn't he? That's right. Yeah. Tremendous.
Also get the impression that there are some things that it won't tell them.
Yes. It's certainly
they ask it questions, and it says a question is forbidden.
Yeah, so you get it's an interesting tier system where the Eternals appear to the Brutals like gods, and they've got all knowledge, and the Eternals restrict knowledge to the Brutals. But then you do find out once Zed gets to the to the Eternals, the Eternals themselves are overseen by the Tabernacle, and this artificial intelligence restricts information to them.
Yeah.
So they're very much restricted in their knowledge as well.
Yeah. And I think they established that Friend is kind of the archivist, isn't he? He's trying to archive all of the sort of the civilizations before that sort of in and there are certain things that the Tabernacle says, you know, you're not allowed to do, or it needs more resources to do this, and it's like, okay, fine. And I think that's another one of the sort of the frustrations of, you know, what Friend is sort of trying to do, and because he's amongst all the you know the relics of past civilizations. There's all the statues of gods and things, and Zed says, is this your church? Is this where your gods are? And they're like, no, this is just like the past. You know, they all got bored and they all went off, and then we're kind of like that. So you get the establishment of like that you know that they kind of almost see themselves as these sort of these relic gods.
Yeah. So, so the Eternals. This gets us to the scene where Friend gets punished, doesn't it?
Well, I think you also get there's isn't. Where May is examining him.
Oh God, yes, yes. You get the examination scene and the scene where he's being shown pornography.
That's the second bit. The first bit is where she examines him and she discovers that he's actually incredibly clever.
Yes, he's far less brutal and more intelligent than.
Yeah, his brain power is almost limitless, and it's more than theirs is.
Yes.
Potentially. And you can see that whoever, well, it's Thrain, is it Arthur Thrain, who is Zardoz. He's been breeding them for, it would seem, for more than just the thing that they think he's been breeding them for.
Yes.
And May agrees to keep the fact that he's incredibly clever a secret from the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you get the scene where they take him into the sort of that big room, and they're all around, and they're showing him
porn.
Yeah, it's basically it's Consuela's trying to prove that he's nothing but a brutal and a walking penis, and they show him.
He's not impressed by the pornography.
He's not remotely impressed by the washing woman or the mud wrestling.
Yeah.
And then it shows that he's turned on by her.
Yes, he looks at Consuela. Yeah. Which is of great embarrassment to her.
Else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Friend loves it. You know, yeah. But Consuela is like more determined than ever that Zed needs to be destroyed.
I think they take a vote, and he's given 7 days. Is it? I think because they've already initially gave a vote. And he was given 3 weeks.
Yes.
And now I think he's given 7 days before he has to be terminated.
Yeah. So they then decide they're kind of at dinner, aren't they? And Zed's there kind of handing out bread and food and whatever. And being charming, I think, much to the annoyance of Consuela.
Yeah.
And you can see she's trying to kind of bring out his brutal side, and it's just not working.
He's not biting. It's great.
Not biting at all. And during this, Friend kind of oversteps the mark, and the Eternals decide that they're going to kill Zed and age Friend.
What happens is Consuela basically says that they should not be relying on him to do the serving work, because they're supposed to serve themselves.
Yes.
Because that's part of what they are. They have to do, you know, a certain amount of drudgery work to sort of like keep them, you know, sort of grounded. And the fact that Zed is doing Friend's work is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Friend's like, I don't give a shit. I'm having a good time.
So they then do this thing where they're supposed to, they reach level 2, which is like some sort of weird meditating thing where they all join minds.
Yes.
And obviously, you know, Friend just basically says, no, I'm not going to do it. I am not going to join you for level 2. I don't want to. I refuse. And they basically sort of, you know, knock him out, as it were. They mind blank him.
Yes, and he overacts terribly here. But you know,
I think that's one of the problems with this suit. Sometimes the weird scenes go on too long.
It does. It goes on far too long. And for a film, the film feels like it feels like the original script was probably like 400 pages long, and then they just ripped out a million pages just to get it, like, you know, like this rip out like 300 of these 400 pages to get it to a reasonable length. And so a lot of the information and a lot of the detail of this film is like just one sentence covers like ludicrous amounts of stuff, and it all feels very rushed. But then you get these scenes where they just hold way too long on stuff, and you're like, why did you do that when you've got so much going on in this movie and so much you're trying to talk about and say? But yeah, it does go on a little too long, and Friend overacts, the actor who plays Friend overacts a little. John, John.
I mean, the thing is that at least they're giving their all. They do.
Oh, for sure, they're all giving it, 100%.
Everybody does take this movie sort of like seriously. I don't think anybody's like completely, just phoning it in or anything.
No, absolutely not. So Friend is aged, and he kind of he almost looks like he's got had a stroke or something.
I don't understand why. It's very odd with him.
It's like they punished him more than the others.
Yeah, but it's weird because with the others you see them, they're all just old.
Yes.
But for some reason, they've aged one side of his face.
Yeah. It's like cruel and unusual punishment.
His left side is sort of like drooping and sagging, and the left side of his hair is all grey. And I don't understand quite why they just aged that side of his face.
I will say that it looks tremendous, though.
I like what they did with this.
The age thing looked like, for the that age makeup looks better than a lot of stuff today. To be honest, it's really, really good.
We also forgot to say when he's talking about the archive, and Zed asks him about what it's for, and he said originally it was to travel among the stars, and he said it was part of what they did to see the universe and to see if there were other things. And he does say that they did go out amongst the stars and they found nothing.
Yeah.
And they just basically went out there, got bored, and came back.
Yeah. They've done everything and seen everything that there is to see, basically.
Yeah.
Which is why their society is just bored and just tired of the drudgery of the monotony of continuing on.
Because you also get this is the part where it sort of weirdly jumps around, because you're not quite sure how much time has passed.
No, it's not very clear.
He's taken Zed runs away.
Yes, he escapes.
Friend is sort of taken off to be aged.
Yeah.
And then you sort of get the feeling that this is happening over a couple of days, but it feels a bit.
It's like almost immediate. It's like he leaves there and walks into a place and is like, oh,
yeah,
there's Friend. It's like, oh.
And I think is this where he goes to the barrier?
Yes, and he goes. Yes, you're right. He escapes, but he reaches like an invisible wall, and he can't go any further. And you get that great shot of Connery kind of squished up against glass. As he can't get out, but he does see some of his some of the brutals there, doesn't he? The exterminators, and he gives them like a sign. He gives them some sign language, doesn't he, through the barrier? Because I don't think sound penetrates, but he gives them instructions. We don't know what the instructions are yet, but he gives them some instructions. Then he is so he escapes. Tells gives his fellow exterminators some information, and then returns back to the town, as it were, and finds Friend.
Yeah, he goes to see Friend at the Renegade's house.
Yeah.
He basically, Friend says this is all your fault, and he tells the other renegades that this he can bring death. So they're all like, "Oh, death! We want death!" And they all sort of like they all sort of pile onto him.
Yeah.
And then he escapes them.
He does indeed.
And does he end up back at the? He ends up back at the apathetics, did he?
He ends up back at the apathetics, and then he's eventually aided by May and Friend, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's given the knowledge of the Eternals. He's given all of the Eternals knowledge, because as we've been shown before, he has like an unlimited capacity for learning, and he can learn even more than the Eternals know. So he is given.
Is this where they? he tells them how, because I
yeah.
think they ask him how he knew all this stuff,
and why he decided to get in the head in the first place and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we discover while they do this, so they give him unlimited knowledge, and they realize through this, they ask him how he came to this place and what happened. And we learn that during one of the outings of the Brutals, he finds...
He saw a face at a window.
He sees a face at a window, and he shoots at it but misses, and then heads inside, and then he's kind of beckoned to come into this library. And in this library, he's told, unlimited knowledge, and
he's taught to read, and he's taught to read.
And he proceeds to read every book, he says. He said he read everything in the library, read the whole library, and we get this... see this again. It's so on the fucking nose. I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's fine as an idea. I mean, Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, he's shown to one book in particular.
Yes,
and that's when he loses his shit, because he sees that the basically the Wizard of Oz. That the face behind the mask is there to to scare off the people and to do what they will. So that's when he decides he's gonna.
It's one of those scenes where I think it's fine in concept, and a lot of this film is very good and interesting in concept. It's the execution, and this is a scene that really kind of displayed that to me, because I think him reading it and us just seeing him reading The Wizard of Oz with a look on his face would have been enough.
Yeah,
we didn't need the fucking sausage fingers covering WI and OF and making Zardoz. It was oh god, you just didn't need it. Did not need that. It was enough to show him reading it to give us okay, he's understood, because of course the Wizard of Oz was in behind a giant head, and that's the idea. So they learned that's how he came to be, and we obviously learned that's why Zed entered the head in the first place, and the reason he's ended up where he's ended up.
And I also think that's where the bodies in the head come in. I think they're what he's been using to breed the new race of exterminators.
Quite possibly, yes.
So I think all those bodies in the shrink wrap, I think that's what he's been genetically sampling and experimenting with.
Yeah, you may well be right, because we learned that Zardoz was trying to breed a Superman. That could basically get into the vortex. Basically, Zed has accomplished what Zardoz intended the new breed of exterminators to do.
Yeah.
He wanted them to get into the vortex and basically disrupt the status quo.
Yeah.
That was the idea. So yes, he has unlimited knowledge, and he also learns the origin of the vortex, and how to destroy the tabernacle, doesn't he?
Yeah. So you get the explanation as to how what are now the old renegades, the original guys who came up with the they were the ones who perfected their society.
Yes.
And gave them, and the current Eternals are their children.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that they put all their knowledge into this tabernacle, so that and it was there to keep them eternal, and it was supposed to be indestructible, so that it would this would go on forever and everything would be preserved as it is.
Yes.
And then I think they realized later that no, we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. So while he's absorbing this knowledge, the unlimited knowledge,
they're taking his seed by osmosis.
Sean Connery fucks everybody.
Yes.
So Zed impregnates May and quite a few of the followers. And he's transformed by his knowledge, isn't he? With his knowledge.
he basically ends up with sort of mind powers, doesn't he?
Yes, he ends up with, well, because it's kind of unlocked in his mind, I guess, from the knowledge of the Eternals. They have that knowledge of how to unlock that part of the brain, and they're all you would assume mostly human, so they all share similar traits.
There is that.
I always had the impression that the Tabernacle created the Eternals, kind of bioengineered them to only learn so much and not learn more than that. And the Brutals, certainly the original Brutals living on Earth, are capable of unlimited knowledge because they're just human and they can just keep learning and learning and learning.
There's that really cool. There's one when Zed first gets to the house, to Arthur Frayne's house. He's looking around in like a study.
Yeah.
And when he comes up the stairs, on the wall there's the evolution of man that's like painted. It's a really lovely painting as well. It's like, and it's got like Homo sapiens, and then it's got Eternal, and it's got the difference in the size of their skulls above them, and the Eternals is just slightly bigger, sort of skull wise, and they're obviously they're fully clothed, unlike the others. And I love that little study. You do get the impression that's probably just like the director's study.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's like that's probably just the director's house.
So, given this knowledge, Zed is kind of transformed from this exterminator, and effectively comes to the conclusion that killing these people would be a mercy.
Yeah, they all really secretly,
and a lot of them want it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've basically. You find out that Friend and Arthur Frayne, who's Zardoz, have been planning this for years. They all secretly want death. So within within the whole group, they've all kind of wanted it.
Yeah.
So they basically, Frayne and Friend, felicitated their death. They basically created this new race, this new breed of exterminator to come, so that they could come in and basically off them all.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we should say it's Consuela, who's completely gone off the rails.
She's lost her fucking mind.
She's full on gone psycho, and she's trying to hunt him down and murder him. So she's leading a group of Eternals that are just basically going around smashing shit up and burning stuff.
Yeah.
And this is when she comes in and that he sort of like reverses them all. He reverses them all out of the way so that they can get out.
Yeah.
And that's when he basically puts the barriers down and invites all the other exterminators in.
Yeah. So he lets the exterminators invade the vortex, and they kill almost all the Eternals, a lot of them,
except for the small group of May and her followers. They go off like to the west, sort of thing.
But it's a wonderful scene because as soon as they turn up, there's the initial shock of them shooting people, but then as soon as that's over, pretty much all of the Eternals welcome death. They're like, kill me, please kill me. They're walking up to the exterminators, asking for death, and receiving it. So yes, as you said, May and several others escape the vortex as it destroys itself, and we get, in my opinion, if there's one reason to watch this movie, it is the last 10 minutes of this film.
Yeah, the
ending of this film hasn't aged necessarily well, but the concept and the ideas that it's trying to put forth in the ending of this movie is amazing. I love the end of this movie.
Yeah.
It's perfect. So
we should also say there's another scene that goes on too long. It's the scene where he's trapped in the tabernacle.
Yes, way too long.
And it's all lots of mirrors and sort of like weird angles and stuff. And it's like, okay, this is good, but now it's too much. But
now it's done.
Please end it soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does go on a little too long. So they escape and they head out into the world amongst the mortal Brutals. But of course, I assume they're mortal as well now, so they're all mortal now.
Yes. And Consuela basically, she realizes that she's been corrupted by her desire for him all along, and she realizes that she did like, she does love him or whatever, lust after him.
Yes.
So she goes off with him.
She goes off with him. She's fallen in love with him and gives birth to a baby boy.
Yeah, they live in the crashed remains of the head.
Yes. And we then get this wonderful scene, which, as I said, my favourite scene in the movie. I think it's a very powerful scene. I think it's very well executed, and I think for its time, it's very well done. It's a wordless sequence of just music. It's musical.
Yeah,
sequence.
It's Beethoven, isn't it? It's,
Beethoven, and we see
Symphony No. 7, I think.
It's basically
which is used
it's a sequence
of
fate.
movie. It's really well done.
It is. The music is well done.
It's beautifully used.
It's a sequence of fades, as we see Zed and Consuela with their baby boy, and we see the boy grow up as they grow old.
The birth to the aging, and then him leaving,
and then growing to the point of being just skeletons. They age to the point of being skeletons. The scenery around them also ages. I love the you've got his gun hanging up in the background, and that ages and rusts over time. It's a wonderful scene. This is a wonderful ending to the movie. I think it's absolutely incredible. And eventually they then they decompose and finally just vanish altogether. And then the only thing on the wall is the handprint. And
two handprints and the rusted gun. And I should say that scene,
a wonderful ending. To be honest, wonderful scene.
That scene they had to do 3 times.
I'm surprised they didn't do it more. If I'm honest.
So basically, Sean Connery hates makeup and everything like that. So he
was it someone else under the makeup?
He grudgingly agreed to do it in the first place, so they did it. And when they looked back at the film, they discovered that there was a flaw in the film.
Oh no! So we had to do it again.
So they had to do it again. So they persuaded him to do it again, and he was really pissed off about it. But they did it again, and then the camera assistant exposed the film.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So they went back to him and said, "I'm afraid we're going to have to do it again."
Sorry, Sean. This is not. This is your life. You are actually going to have to do this again.
And then when he said no, it's not a joke, the camera assistant exposed the film. He apparently went ape shit, it took like 5 people to drag him off the camera assistant. He was not amused. So
Connery in interviews is always he does not suffer fools. No, and I can imagine.
So they eventually agreed. He eventually calmed him down, and he agreed to do it for a 3rd time, and that's what you see on the movie.
That was that. A wonderful ending to a troubled movie. I think a movie that has poor execution in many places, but wonderful concepts and wonderful ideas.
Beautifully filmed.
It's incredibly well filmed. Yeah, I agree completely. Some of the landscape shots at the start with the head and stuff, incredible. Yeah,
really beautiful.
And the Ireland looks beautiful in this film.
Yeah.
The colours really pop, and
I think it is. It's one of those movies. Yes, it's pretentious, and yes, it's
for sure.
It's overwrought at times. But I think it's one of those movies that it does something. It's different. It's doing its own thing.
Very different.
And there are not enough movies that are sort of like trying to do something different and trying something.
It's funny because I feel like I said, I do genuinely believe that most people that criticize Zardoz have not watched Zardoz. They've seen that image of Connery, and I'd be really interested to ask the next. I think the next person that says, "Oh, Zardoz is awful," because he comes up down the pub. We talk about things, it's like it does come up more often than you'd imagine that Connery. If you mention Sean Connery as Bond or Zardoz, generally the two things are going to come up. And I'm going to mention it to someone next time they say it. I'll just say what do you think that movie is? Because I think that people will imagine that it's kind of a caper, an action movie. Because he's got the gun there and the gun belt, and I think they'll think it's like an action kind of cheesy sci-fi action movie. and I think they'd be quite surprised at what the movie actually is, you know? Because it's not that. It's not like that one image completely missells the movie.
It skews the whole perception of the movie, doesn't it?
It really does. It really
does.
And
I think for some people they just can't get past that, and I've never got that. But
I haven't. I think I saw it. I think I saw it young enough that it didn't bother me.
Yeah, same here. I saw it quite young, and I
just take it as it is, and it's not. No, you don't think about it.
So you think about it. He's basically just wearing what He-Man wears.
Yeah, but this is the thing, and this is what I was going to say earlier. This is what I was getting at earlier on, is if it was fur instead of red, and he looked more like, more like if he was dressed like He-Man, people would have accepted it more because it would have been like, oh, he's just a caveman. He's just a caveman. But I think it's the fact that it's red pants. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what does it. I think that's what kind of. But for me, like I said, it's the fucking thigh-high boots that do it for me. Once those are gone,
the shape of the pants does make it look like it's a nappy.
It does look like a nappy.
Really
it looks. It doesn't look so much like a nappy once the gun belt's off, but with the gun belt pulling it up, it looks like a nappy. 100%. It's not a good look. Connery, one of, if not the sexiest man alive for many, many decades.
Well, there's even worse one in it, which we forgot to mention. There's one bit
where
he's hiding with the renegades, and they put him in a wedding dress.
They do put him in a wedding dress. I mean, I can't believe he went along with a lot of this.
Oh man, I think they took.
He must have been furious once he was.
I think it took a lot of persuading.
Because I think he must have thought, I don't really understand this script, but good God, this is John Borman. This is like Deliverance. Point blank. You know, this guy has got some real credibility. This is going to be incredible. And then he gets there and they're like, right, you're going to be wearing this nappy and then you're going to wear a wedding dress in the one scene where you're not in the nappy. Just wow.
Well, originally it was going to be Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, I can imagine Burt Reynolds.
He'd already worked with him, on Deliverance, and I don't think he wanted to do it. I think he read the script and was like, no.
I think he pulled out because of illness, but whether that's just a fucking...
I think you're right.
That might just be an excuse he used, though, having read the script.
I forgot about it. Yes, he did.
I suddenly feel very faint.
Yeah, I'm not feeling very well, no.
I genuinely think Zardoz is a troubled film, but it's a wonderful film. It's got some great concepts, and I think it's really worth watching. I think you just need to watch it. You know, ignore the outfits and just take the concepts and the ideas, and ignore some of the execution, because it's not terribly well executed in places. But I think the ideas and the concepts behind this film are fascinating.
But it does have a very sort of, it feels very 70s. It's got that very sort of like
for sure
post hippie feel to it. You know, it's made by a director who obviously at some point had like hippie leanings, and it's got that sort of thing that you don't kind of find.
Amazingly, the one thing that hasn't aged in this movie and doesn't feel 70s at all is the soundtrack, because using Beethoven, it feels fine. That's not aged at all. It still holds up wonderfully. Everything else is very 70s. You're right. But a wonderful film nonetheless. I really do think it's... I've always said, I know we've said on this show many times, and even on the movie show I'm sure we said many times, that Zardoz is not as bad as people say, and I've always said, I love Zardoz. Zardoz is cool.
I love Zardoz.
And I've had it on DVD for years, but I must admit, it's been a long time since I watched it. And I said last week, we were talking about what we should watch, and we said, let's do Zardoz.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I wonder if when I rewatch it, I'll think it's fucking awful now. And I rewatched it, and I was like, no, do you know what? I still think it's not a... I wouldn't say it was a good movie, but I think it's got some wonderful ideas and concepts, and it's certainly not a bad movie. I think it's well worth a watch.
Again, it's actually riffing on a lot of classic sci-fi stories. It's got a very sort of like, even with like things like with like the time machine, you've got the two races in the time machine. You've got the Eloise and the Morlocks.
It is very much.
You've got the sort of the Brave New World sort of stuff. With this sort of like eternal civilization. It's like above everything else, and you've got the.
You can tell that Borman had had read a lot of classic science fiction, for sure. For sure. I will say the poster can fuck off.
Depending on the poster, because I quite like the.
I love everything.
The green poster.
Yeah. So I love the green poster. I love the way it looks. But what can fuck off is the tagline, which is beyond 1984, beyond 2001, beyond love, beyond death. Fuck off. Like, that does not get you off on a good bloody start.
Originally, he only wanted it to set it 10 years in the future, I think, and it was like, I'm so glad that somebody said, let's put it like a little further
go
away.
Crazy far away. Yeah.
Because I think that would have aged it even worse.
Yeah. For sure. If it was,
like, 1983 or something.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
It would have been awful because it just would not work at all.
Yeah. But there we have it, Zardoz, and I genuinely recommend that people check this movie out.
Yeah,
it's a really good movie.
It's nothing else than just the novelty of seeing weird things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a completely original movie.
And a great performance by Connery, as always. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons we were doing this was in tribute to Connery. So
you completely feel like, even though he probably didn't know what was going on, he takes it very seriously. He's not fucking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't. He's not phoning it in at all, or
no one is. No one's phoning stuff in this movie. Like you said earlier, they're all taking it very seriously, and they all, they give it their all.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people have probably covered From Russia with Love. Now after Connery's death, and that's obviously it's in my opinion the best Bond movie. I think in your opinion the best Bond movie as well.
Yep.
So fair enough. But we thought something a little different, and a movie that deserves more love than it gets. So
I completely think that's true. I think it's definitely one that needs to be watched more. I think it's a really good little sort of snapshot of weird 70s sci-fi.
Yeah. It's very interesting. But in any case, we'll be back next time with a regular show again. Had a headache the last time we recorded. And to the point that I'd actually forgotten a movie which I will cover this time, or next time. So
okay.
Yeah, because I have seen The Craft Legacy.
Oh,
but,
my word!
We'll save that for next time.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the review of that one.
You could probably tell which way it will go, but I have.
I'm definitely sure which way that's gone.
I have now watched it.
From what I've heard.
Yeah. It's not great. But we'll get to that next time. And yes, until then, go watch Zardoz and take care. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.